to try and make sense for all of us, an election campaign that on the surface looks boring and a foregone conclusion, but there is stuff going on. And as you know, every week or so, maybe a little bit longer, we just check in with Chris Trotter, a wise old head, to get his read of the lay of the land. How are you, Chris?
Hey, I'm very well. That was a very nice thing to say about my daughter.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Thank Ray on my behalf.
All right. Look, Chris, it might look like the outcome of this election, as we get more and more polls that show the same trend, is getting more and more certain. I don't know, as the big day approaches, I get slightly more excited at the permutations and the possible outcomes, don't you?
Yes, the campaign is picking up the sort of speed which tends to drag most of the population into the slipstream. And, yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah. You don't really want a country to sleepwalk into its future.
Yeah.
You would like to think that people are thinking about their vote carefully and will participate.
Yeah. I want to run through a few things I've observed, see if you agree that these are, if you like, in terms of stuff that's happened, significant or not. First up, I want to say I think ACT has stalled. Its campaign has stalled.
I agree.
Why do we think that is, Chris?
Well, I think, first of all, there was the problem that ACT had with 4 or 5 of its candidates, albeit they were candidates well down the list.
Yeah.
2 things about that. The first of all was that it signalled a loss of discipline. One of the things about ACT for the past 3 years in particular...
No mess-ups by its new BMPs.
That's right.
Not one.
It has, extraordinary political discipline. Somewhere along the line, that discipline failed because it really surprised me that David Seymour seemed to take his eye off the ball. And he's a very shrewd political operator. And I would have thought that keeping his eye on that list and making it extremely clear to the people in the party, you must do all of the due diligence.
Yeah, mind you, some would say he has shown discipline by, without emotion, getting rid of candidates who didn't do that.
Yep. He responded very quickly, but there was also a moment or two of frustration on his part that was captured by the news media, almost to petulance, which is understandable, but it presented a face which the country hadn't seen before, and set up, I think, a sort of rolling mall of doubt about ACT and then about David Seymour. And it was really unfortunate from ACT's perspective because it came at exactly the wrong time. I also suspect that behind a lot of Seymour's anger was sure and certain knowledge that large amounts of money were being funneled into New Zealand First.
Yeah, Chris, I'm going to tell you, I don't think they have been. I think New Zealand First is a poor cousin.
I put a lot of faith in Richard Harman, who's been kicking around political journalism.
Yeah, well, I think his stories are wrong. I think Winston Peters has been doing this on the bones of his bum, to be honest.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well,
but also I think that Seymour's obsession. I do think it's important for that point to be made, though, and Matthew Hooton makes it as well, of course, and has done very forcefully. Yeah.
That there are people on the right of New Zealand politics who do have an interest. In making sure that New Zealand First is part of the mix. We'll leave it there. I don't know.
But he has become also, David Seymour. He's become obsessed by Winston Peters, and it would appear his visceral hatred for him. I think that too has taken ACT away from focusing on the things it is very good at.
Yes. Yes, and I think one of the things that ACT did, which I admired actually, and I've been waiting for a minor party to do this ever since MMP came in, when he said, the unsayable. He said, well, I might give you confidence, but not necessarily supply.
Yeah, see, I think the average voter took that as petulance.
Yeah, I don't think people read it correctly. I think if they'd thought it through, they'd have realised, my God, that is the way the smaller parties should conduct themselves. Because what the major parties expect of the smaller parties is that, they round up 400,000, 500,000, 600,000 votes, and then they just ignore them. Ignore all the voters and throw away all the policies, bow their heads and say, yes, sir, for the next 3 years. Well, why should smaller parties do that? Why should the major parties expect small parties to do that? I mean, if they need their votes to govern, then surely they need to sit down and properly negotiate a coalition agreement which gives them something of what they have campaigned on and received hundreds of thousands of votes for.
Yeah, I hear you.